Interesting news here. And it's kind of Disney related, obviously, as you can see in the title. DC's Kevin Feige found producer Dan Lin is in talks to take control of film, TV for superhero arm. That is the kind of the DCEU within the now Warner Brothers Discovery kind of brand here, or entity, I should say. Because this is, look, it's not official, right? There's some talks going on, but because it's been leaked to the Hollywood Reporter, basically suggests kind of a done deal kind of thing there. Look, I'm gonna say this. I'm not convinced that this is necessarily the guy. Now, look, is he a better choice than Walter Hamada, who exists right there, or right now? I do believe that is the case, right? Now, I will give him credit for bringing James Gunn in the building. That was a smart, savvy move right there. Also, to I think Joker was, the most universally kind of well received thing, right? That he had done, but even then, from what I understand, he wasn't a big fan of it and tried to actually can it. So that just tells you maybe Hamada's not the guy. And a lot of people predicted that he wasn't going to be the guy for very much longer. So this Dan Lin here, I look at his kind of resume. Lego movies, okay. I think the first one was really, really big.
Funny.
The second and the Batman Lego movies, I don't know, they kind of dropped off, but okay, fine. Right, it okay, pretty strong. Like I said, though, the sequel, maybe. Sherlock Holmes, big franchise, can't complain there. And you've already got Robert Downey Jr. and ties to that. Okay, I think Godzilla vs. Kong, part of it, right? And this brings us to why this story is very, very interesting. Aladdin. Now, Aladdin does make the connection to Alan Horn, right, who was also in-house, and apparently he was the guy that maybe was whispering in Zaslav's ear to go ahead and select this Dan Lin character. We'll go over some of his other kind of pieces of his resume, but OG, what are your kind of initial thoughts here? You like this, don't like this? What's going through your head?
Well, number one, out the gate, I would never underestimate Alan Horn. And if Alan Horn's saying Dan Lin's the guy, you can't dismiss that. Alan Horn is pretty fucking brilliant, to be honest with you. He's done amazing things both at Warner Brothers, even before his time at Disney. And then at Disney, he was like legendary.
Yeah.
So if Alan Horn is if he's vouching for him, like the mob, right? Yeah, I vouch for you, man. If he's vouching for this guy, then he definitely, I think this Dan Lin definitely has some chops to some degree, right? But the problem though here is I see a lot of people kind of like hanging on to like, well, he's produced a lot of great movies, therefore he's a great pick.
Right.
Not necessarily. Look, and I'm not trying to start like a whole thing because I know Star Wars is really divisive, but Kathleen Kennedy has an amazing resume as well.
Mm-hmm.
She's produced a lot of great movies as well. But she doesn't know really, in my opinion, how to manage a studio.
Yep.
So you can be a great quarterback, but does that necessarily translate to being a great coach?
Yeah.
Not necessarily. So this guy Dan Lin, look, he has the resume, and he's got Alan Horn vouching for him. He's got everything lined up for him. That doesn't mean he's going to be fucking awesome. Kennedy had all the same stuff aligned for her as well, and she didn't do that great, to be honest. So we just don't know. He could be fantastic. I'm not dismissing him out the gate. I'm just saying, just because the resume looks good, Horn vouches for him, doesn't necessarily mean, look, George Lucas vouched for Kathleen Kennedy. So
yeah, exactly.
I mean, that's Lucas is the one who put Kennedy in the spot. It wasn't even Bob Iger.
I that one will always puzzle me. That will always be puzzled. And from what I understand, George Lucas did that because I think he wanted somebody from his camp to be in his camp, making executive decisions about Star Wars going forward. That clearly did not materialize in the way that George Lucas may have thought it might have when making that selection. And look, I will agree with you. I mean, just because you have been a great producer on some films doesn't mean that you can necessarily helm a studio and really kind of move it into a direction, especially with characters and stories that are kind of interconnected that you kind of have to maintain over time, right? I think a lot of the kind of continued success and the continued draw towards the MCU is that they've been able to take these characters, cultivate them, have them mature, have their character arcs be maintained, and to the point where when these kind of characters do something that's a little bit maybe uncharacteristic for them, fans kind of they're surprised by it, right? And so we've kind of seen that Lin has an incredible resume. I'm not saying that he doesn't. But I think they were kind of, I think Zaslav and some others were kind of, they were more intrigued by the variety of his production work, and maybe not necessarily putting an enhanced emphasis on his work with superheroes or, the shepherding of these franchises and so forth in this kind of all connected universe, which I think is a very important aspect of it. And I think part of that is because, well, look at Kevin Feige. We have to, have somebody that matches his resume. That's not going to be, you're not going to find that person. So what's the second best? I think Zaslav and others, right? Maybe, like I said, put emphasis on the variety of his work, because I think they do want to have a DC presence on television, DTC, linear. Linear distribution, film, and all that kind of stuff. So it's like, okay, let's get a guy that has kind of dabbled in all of these worlds, right? And he has. But I don't know. I mean, even in that kind of field, right? I guess he did work on the Lethal Weapon show, which had a lot of drama behind the scenes. So it's like, that's kind of questionable. He did Terminator Salvation. I mean, that's not a high point right there, but that's a big franchise, Gangster Squad, some other films. Like I said, I'm not convinced. I would have liked to have seen a guy, because Kevin Feige, to me, what set him apart, right, when they selected him for the MCU role and so forth, and kind of well, I mean, obviously he was a package deal with Marvel, but they empowered him, and one of the reasons why they did was because he knew character, he knew these stories, he knew these kind of films, he knew the audience, right, he knew all those things, but he had a really great grasp on the material, and I think he positioned himself well based on his prior work with former Marvel films that he wasn't necessarily, I mean, he took a producership role in, but didn't necessarily have full control over, kind of knowing what worked, what didn't work, and all those kind of things. This Stan Lin, I think, lacks a lot of that.
Yeah.
So I'm just, I looking at this, I'm kind of, unconvinced. Just looking at it. I will say, though, very interesting point in this Hollywood Reporter article, it suggests that there's going to be a structure change too, where he'll kind of have his own kind of division set aside from the other kind of the TV side of things, movie side of things, going to have his own kind of division, right? And he's going to maybe address Zaslav with no middleman in order to do so. And that structure very much was very similar to what Alan Horn and Bob Iger arranged for Kevin Feige to kind of get rid of Ike Perlmutter, sideline him, and have Feige report direct to Bob Iger himself. Very interesting how Zaslav is looking to duplicate the success of the MCU in more ways than just one.
It is. But that only works, though, if Zaslav has the chops to know what's a good decision and what's not. So it kind of goes like even with Walt Disney, right? Like Walt Disney was a micromanager, like to the T.
Yes, absolutely.
Standing over his animators, he was micromanaging like crazy, but he was a fucking genius, so it worked.
Yes.
Does Zaslav have the chops? Bob Iger obviously did. Bob Iger obviously understood when Feige came to him, is this a good idea, bad idea? Approve it, not approve it. Bob Iger had the sensibility to sort of know. Yes. Does Zaslav have that same intuition, that same kind of gut? I don't know. That's yet to be proven. So this model works, but you also have to have the right guy making the call, though.
Right. Well,
We don't know.
well, not just
Yeah.
on the top end, but on the other rung as well.
Right.
That move was made to empower Kevin Feige and to give him autonomy outside of Ike Perlmutter, right? That was what that whole thing was. Iger was putting a lot of trust into Kevin Feige in order to make those decisions because he trusted him, because he was the guy, as we have come to find out. But is Dan Lin the guy as well on the other side of that equation? That's the other thing too. You got to have
Right.
trust that he can do the job as well. Between Zaslav and Lin, unconvinced.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. And there's been a lot of rumors lately that Feige's kind of on his way out with Marvel. One of my favorite content creators, Den of Nerds. I mentioned him yesterday in a video.
Yep.
But he made a speculation video recently about how it's possible Feige leaves and goes to DC. Well, I think that kind of ship has sailed, to be honest with you. I mean, at least for the time being. They're announcing this guy, this Dan Lin. Feige's pretty much locked into Marvel now, at least for the foreseeable future. Because if Feige was going to leave Disney, DC would have been where he would have went. Yeah. And it looks like they're signing this guy. It's going to be at least a several-year contract. Disney has Feige for at least a few more years, assuming that he doesn't get fired or something like that. I mean, that's always something, a wild card, whatever. But in terms of like just assuming everything is going cool, Feige's safe at Disney, at least for a few more years.
I would say very likely, but I still don't know, man. I just because Kevin Feige himself doesn't have anywhere to go doesn't mean that he still is, he's still safe as far as how long Disney will have him be in house.
True.
See,
Peter Rice.
I mean, it's Peter Rice, right? There has been kind of talks. There's been some rumors circulating. That Park Place actually had an article about this most recently when talking about She-Hulk and some other things relating to the MCU. That some executives are kind of, maybe thinking like, hey, was Feige really the reason for all of the MCU's success? Is he maybe the reason why things have been kind of going a little bit downhill lately? Demand has kind of dropped off. Maybe we need somebody new in-house to kind of, spice things up, let's say. And maybe we move Kevin Feige over to, somewhere else within the studio, within Disney. Hey, maybe he can helm Lucasfilm. I don't know. But there has been that kind of talk lately. And it's kind of crazy to think about because you just think of the body of work that Feige has been a part of, an instrumental part of, right? I mean, the MCU is, it's the most successful franchise of all time.
It is.
Nothing even comes close. And the idea that guy might not be a part of it moving forward, or at least some executives might be thinking those things, maybe saying them between each other. That's a shocking thing, but I will give you credit. This definitely, what is it? It definitely quiets that kind of talk down, right? Because I think the biggest fear was that Zaslav would just take him right underneath from Chapek, right?
Right.
But it doesn't make it completely go away. It's going to be fascinating to see how this goes down moving forward.
That's a great way to put it. It quiets it. It doesn't eliminate it, though. It's always possible. It's always possible. Remember the Peter Rice thing, and I know Peter Rice is nowhere close to the asset that Kevin Feige is. But to be fair, he got like that. Like it wasn't like it came out of left field, basically, right? And Feige could be the same way. And Chapek could decide, look, you know what have you done for us lately, Feige? I don't know, you done She-Hulk, this, that, and the other. Yeah, they're doing moderately okay, but it's not, the MCU of the past. You're not hitting the home runs you used to hit. So maybe I shouldn't, take you off the bench. Maybe it's time to kind of retire, buddy. We'll see. We'll absolutely see. Now, personally, in my opinion, I would not want to let Kevin Feige go. I think if he's not working for the MCU, I think you figure a way out to kind of keep him at Disney. I don't think you want the competition having him. That's just my opinion. But we'll see. Chapek and C-suite over at Disney, they're more privy to the information and what's going on than I am, obviously. So if he's not working out and maybe he really wasn't the guy behind the magic and there's other things going on, okay, fine, you let him go. We'll see. I don't know. It's fascinating, though. It's absolutely fascinating. We're going to keep an eye on this Zaslav, Dan Lin's story because I think it's very much in the early stages. It's interesting times, but you know what? I will say this. It's exciting times because Warner Brothers looks like they have a mover and a shaker over there running their studio now with Zaslav, who's doing big things. He's ambitious.
Mm-hmm.
And he's pissing off a lot of people, which is not necessarily a bad thing. Sometimes when you rock the boat, you might be doing something right. You might be doing something right. We just don't know yet. We don't know yet. So we'll see how this whole thing pans out. It's interesting though, how this whole thing is panning out. I'm really curious to see how Zaslav takes Warner Brothers going forward and this whole thing with Chapek, how he takes Disney going forward. Times are changing.